So when you are talking to people that you really want to listen to and really want to be present for and understand their situation. So again, today we're talking about being supportive and present with people that have been adopted. And so first I want to start with, how well do we listen? This may not have been our experience. So imagine your heart being really wide open, as if you're talking to someone you know extremely well, you really love. And sometimes we don't even have people in our lives, right? So maybe it's your pet. Think of something that you feel love and connection with, and try to retain that openness when you listen to someone that has had an experience that maybe you don't have any way to relate to it. Maybe it's sometimes we're dealing with a situation that it's complicated, we don't agree, but we have to find some way to resolve our lack of connection. So listening with your whole body, your heart's really open, feeling calm, doing some deep breathing and really relaxed, and just be as open as you can to those other thoughts that that person and the feelings they are having, and just really finding a way to be very present and supportive. So in my research that a dear friend of mine supplied about the experiences that being adopted can bring up, I would like to speak to that, and then I would like to speak to some ideas that I had with brainstorming on how to create more support for those people and to have a supportive plan of things that might help you feel some healing with these painful topics that can come up. Doesn't mean everyone has to have it. I'm sure there's some incredible stories on the planet of people that had a very good experience being adopted. So I don't want to discredit that, but I do also want to speak to that. I think it's a very complicated situation and hard to pull off, right? And not have some layers that need some healing. So I'm going to first speak to the wounds, I call them wounds, experiences that were painful for people that I found in reading up on it and listening to their forum. So basically, when I was studying psychology, I did a lot of education around racism and around a lot of discrimination of all different kinds. And one of the things that did come up was the whole adoption thing. So people of color and indigenous people tended to be adopted more, a lot more, and taken from their families. And so there's a whole layer of that I know that there's a lot of pain there for people on that level. And it happens with every race and everybody, but it was much more prevalent and accepted back in the day. And I'm sure it still happens in those ways. So, someone that has been adopted, there's this whole process. It's like the court kind of owns your life, like they allow you to go be adopted, which is kind of a interesting experience to begin with, because that person, the people that take you in may not have might kind of erase your private experience. Like that's kind of a big possibility of that scenario, and that erasure, that sense of self, that connection with your community, or however you want to label it. To me, I look at it as your people, like your tribe, the people you resonate with, the people you feel a connection with. That's how I look at family. But there's this erasure that can happen. And sometimes you never learn what the truth is, or you find out, much later. I read that there can be all kinds of difficulties in accessing your legal documents around your birth certificate and getting documentation, later in your life, just trying to function within life. There's all these complications and red tape around things like that. But so there is, and in my studies in psychology and listening to history around adoption experiences and things, particularly with people of color, there wasn't even supportive, like accurate, easy to find information about the family they were no longer with for whatever reason. In those times they were actually taken quite a bit. There was a whole thing on that. So, I don't say this to shame anybody, in society at all. I do speak to this because I like to speak to the truth, and I like to speak to, let's find a better way. So in finding a better way, and all of us emotionally growing and finding healthier patterns of how to handle difficult scenarios and situations, I would like to listen to the wounding that I heard from researching of the experience for adopted people. So there was a lot of things there. And I think understanding that we may not understand their experience, letting that go, and just being open and listening with our hearts, with our emotions, with our guts, these people's experience. So we can provide community for them. Because I think part of a way to heal this is developing the connection that was taken from their experience. Okay, so that's one of the things I'm going to be talking to today. Okay, and so I want to give an example. My background is working a lot with somatics, and our cells have memory, and we have this like biological memory deep within us, like at a cellular level. And to speak a little bit about me, I don't like to revolve too much around me, but I am a mother. I've been a stepmother, I've been a biological mother, and I'm also a legal guardian to someone. So I worked in mental health for 7 years with teens, seeing a lot of situations of kids that the home environment was extremely complicated. And there was some adopted ones. There was that sense of removal from the family, because I worked with residential treatment where they were like checked in for sometimes quite some time. So it was very enlightening to see this disconnect with the family. So there's a lot of ways disconnect can happen. But what I would like to speak to was my experience as a mother. Giving birth being pregnant, in my opinion, is very bizarre. It's very surreal. It almost doesn't feel real, especially the first time around. It just feels really bizarre. Now, when I did give birth, I had to have a C-section. And what I felt, because I asked them to completely anesthetize me, was when I woke up from that anesthesia and they had taken the baby, the loss, how much I missed the baby that had been so surreal that I, almost didn't feel like it was a real thing. It was just so bizarre that, being pregnant, you're like, wow, I have this person. Like, it's hard to wrap your brain around it 100%, but I noticed that was my first feeling, was this loss, this oh my God, where's this person? Which I wasn't expecting to feel. And what I find pretty profound about that is that feeling that as a mother, I can only imagine the baby's experience. So the baby's experience, to me, it's like a visceral abandonment, being separated from the mother. It's like a death. In my opinion, I feel like that would be felt on a deep, visceral, cellular level, like a death. You have lost someone. Because even though we can develop these attachments to other people, I believe, in life that feel like family, that aren't necessarily biological family, and I'm just talking about in general. I'm not talking about someone that's been adopted. In general, I think that possibility is there. And sometimes it's helpful to create that possibility for yourself when you don't have a strong family connection for whatever reason. So, but just there is this biological thing that cannot be denied, of feeling that memory that you can't even explain. So this is like a pre-verbal trauma. So the baby, what they're experiencing, there are no words to express this enigma of what just happened there, right? But they feel everything, and their cells are going to remember that. Their deep subconscious, their psyche, everything's going to remember this. And, so they were inside their mother's body, which feels safe, familiar. They know her voice. They feel the connection on this intuitive, deep, deep level. And to have that changed is very impactful. And again, if there's anyone listening that had to deal with the very complex situation of releasing a child to adoption, again, this is not to make anyone feel bad at all. But what I want to do, because I'm sure there's a lot of pain there too, right? That can be a really painful, there's so many layers to understand what happened. And later I want to talk about the support of the mothers that maybe were backed into a corner or a situation where that happened, right? I would want to speak to them receiving support as well. So that visceral kind of abandonment that can be felt, and you can also lose the sense of self. I think some of our sense of self comes from our connection from getting that feedback from our environment. Well, a lot of sense of self, not some, but whoever raises us as a parent really helps develop a sense of self. And if biologically we're feeling this disconnect from being separated from a biological, from the mother, then the sense of self gets lost with that, I think, to some degree. And there's also the feeling of safety can be really disrupted. So they may have a result of feeling unsafe. So again, my name is Michelle Love. This show is called Dynamic Change. You're listening to KPCA LP in Petaluma. And I'm discussing the experience of being adopted after researching it and having two dear friends that I've listened to over the years and have learned a little bit about. So I had to do a lot of research to make sure I had some ideas here. And I just want to speak to their experience and how we can be supportive of them and think of ways we can provide healing for this. So in all the things that I read, I heard these experiences and feelings be a result of what can happen through adoption for the person, for the adoptee. Okay, so it can feel like, and this is also, some of it is what I gathered, I'm going to put it into some words too, So extreme isolation. That was one of the things, I think, when we don't feel our connection, our community, our tribal connection, there is a sense of extreme isolation. And especially if it is a person of color, and they get adopted into a different, person that looks really different, there's all of those layers too. That can be really hard to relate to. And again, there's nothing wrong with people trying to help. I think people trying to help is good, but we also need to look at listening to what the other person needed. Sometimes it's hard to know what that person needed, what that child needed. So even if there are good intentions, were we able to understand the child's viewpoint? Was it from just our viewpoint? So the effect of the kid can be extreme isolation, grief, severe abandonment, and this is felt at a deep subconscious pre-verbal level, okay? Anxiety of uncertainty. So if sometimes it takes time to get it, they might go straight into the like social services, like a temporary parental situations, because they don't have a set home. So there's going from, foster homes. Sometimes I've known people that have lived in the foster system, and unfortunately it can be a really imperfect, to say the least, very painful, dysfunctional system. And I think there are wonderful people out there that sometimes are able to catch those kids, and I really honor them. I've known one that I just found amazing. There are some amazing people out there that foster kids, but it's a system that needs a lot of revamping and more support, in my opinion. So also growing up, like let's say someone got adopted, and they knew they were adopted, and they were older when they ended up with the family that they stayed with. I think there's this sense of trying to please them, to feel accepted, like they have to be good in order to stay, right? So not being able to just relax. What kind of pressure is that? Feeling like this isn't, I owe them something, or I'm not really, part of their family. All these things of not feeling 100% safe and that you can relax. The fight or flight within the body, that reaction, the anxiety that you feel to this lack of ease, right, created by that scenario, is pretty intense, right? So, and also you're losing like familial lines and identity. So some people, family can be this big extended thing, right? And if you lose not only your birth mother, but maybe there would have been an aunt, an uncle, a grandma, other people that, or even siblings, I find that particularly would be really painful for me to imagine. But those connections can end up being so valuable, because family dynamics are really complicated, in my opinion. And sometimes there's a lot of disconnect within biological families, but you can find connection through the extended members. And so you lose this network where even if there would have been imperfection, or it wasn't going to be a feasible support from certain family members, there may have been extended ones that are in there that create still that cohesiveness of identity and knowing who you are. So you lose that as well. And then there's this element of feeling lied to, right? Because often it's not revealed, and maybe with good intentions. They don't want them to feel like they were not part of the family, were not loved or not accepted. But finding a way to be present and love someone as your family and still be truthful. Now, so I would like to speak again to the different mothering roles I have done in life. And the only reason I bring this up is because this is what I would like to speak to. I think that is a supportive way of being present with someone that is not your biological kid. So for me, when I was a stepmom, the child I was honored to help raise had a mother, had a fantastic mother, a loving mother, a kind mother, protective mother. And the kid went between the two homes. And I really love kids. And so I loved that boy as my own kid, but I never sought to replace the mother. I think the respect is so paramount, should be the first thing, the respect for the other mom. So for me, I treated them as if I had given birth to them, protective, wanted to be there for them, wanted to make sure they had everything they had. So I didn't feel a separation, right? That, so I think being fully present and feeling bonded is important, but I never asked them to call me their mother or even to call me their stepmom. I asked them, what do you want to call me? Do you want to call me Michelle? You can say I'm your stepmom if you want, but you have your own mother. And I always said that. I said, you can always just call me Michelle. I don't even need the title. You don't even need to say stepmom if you don't want to. So I always was really allowing the kid to do what they felt comfortable doing. And I thought that was so important out of respect. And when, being a legal guardian, which is another one of the roles I have done, within that role, again, it was always so important to me to support their connection with the family. Even though they were living with me, always, talking about, for the holidays or birthdays or communication. And again, acknowledging and respecting and speaking in a way where that is their original connection. I love you so much, as if you're part of my family. There is no separation in my heart with you, but I respect and honor where you came from all the time. So I think it is really important to have your heart open so you're completely available to them, but to not think of it as like an ownership, right? That's where our own emotions, our own stuff can get involved, our own emotional baggage can get involved, right? It has to be a very selfless thing. There's, as a stepmom, I didn't expect anything back. And that is not an easy situation by any means, because you just got to be selfless and just give, and also as a foster parent, you're giving, but it's the right thing to do. And I think society needs to give very deeply when we can, when we have it to give, but to give on those emotional present levels where it is more, where we're selfless about it in a healthy way. So that's how I look at mothering. When there is this expectation of things being given back, I think that's when it gets complicated and can be dysfunctional. Okay, so they also, going back to the feelings that can be experienced that I found through my research for someone that has been adopted, they can have undefinable anger. So this anger of feeling abandoned, feeling like an outsider. So again, this visceral biological experience that has no words, pre-verbal, of what can be felt, not feeling heard or acknowledged because they're almost forced into a situation that is so complex, right? That's so, and then there can be shame of feeling left behind, feeling unwanted, and this trauma experience, trauma response to goodbyes, right? Because the abandonment was so severe feeling. And then also what I did read from people was this feeling, because they come in with all this visceral, subconscious, pre-verbal trauma, that they feel, or people could see them as, emotionally crazy or whatever. They could put that bad label. I don't agree with that at all. But you feel so upset that you can feel kind of crazy. You're like, wow, this is like so overwhelming, so profound. The visceral feelings, the trauma starting so young that it's just disturbing to understand, wrap your head around it. So you just come in with a certain amount of trauma, right? And so what I would like to speak to are some solutions and or ideas. And I would love for them to percolate within everybody. And so I think revamping the system in general, I always lean into that idea. I think we could do a lot better in so many ways within society. What I kept reading was that people really felt, instead of being adopted, it being handled more like a guardianship. And being a legal guardian to someone, I understand that. I think that we just need representatives for people that need support and help in the world. It's like advocates. I think we need advocates. So rather than putting the label, the concept, the expectations of, now I'm your new parent that you didn't know, because that puts a lot of psychological expectation onto the situation. Rather than that, if we think of it more like we're advocating, we are doing everything we can to be there for that person. It's less about our identity, right? That it has to do with us. It's less about, it's if our hearts are still open, and it's less of an identity investment psychologically. If we think of like mom, there's a whole other layer of baggage that's going to go with that. If we put it more in the, I'm going to be their advocate, I'm going to help guard them any way I can to help them be safe in life and have what they need, guide them as much as possible. It's a different way. It's a different approach. Another thing I read, which I really agreed with, was more financial allocation to keeping families together and support healing within the family structure. So a lot of history with adoption in the United States, has quite a extremely dysfunctional way of it being handled. And a lot of it came from racism and came from situations where people were not supported enough. They did not have the financial freedom, the rights, the systemic support within society to be able to survive and provide for their family. A lot of times the kids were just taken because they had been in poverty and that had been forced upon them. I mean, there was a lot of really uncomfortable things to look at, okay? But we should look at how can we support the people that need that support so they can have a thriving family situation. situation for those kids. And I think it is really important that we look at poverty in a way and look at racism in a way, sexism, all of it. Just look at how can we develop more compassion and empathy, avocation, and being there for people that just need some support. Because the more we support those people, the less these kinds of issues are going to come up later on. The more everyone thrives, the less kids that are, end up in this type of situation. Whatever the cause was, it's going to happen less. The more we can be there for people that are struggling. And I think it's really important to look at that and to be supportive of those areas within our society that are weak, in my opinion, where the societal structure has been dysfunctional and weakened in a way where this phenomena keeps happening of there's more broken homes, due to the extreme stress of poverty, of racism, economic imbalance. So there's a lot of things that could be done better. And I know when I say this, I can't say it like it's nothing and it's this easy thing to address. But I want to talk about, let's be conscious about it. Okay, let's find a way to be open to some new ideas and change. Okay, so I would like to talk about how can we offer a safety net for these people. So again, my name is Michelle Love. You're listening to my show, which is Dynamic Change. And I'm so grateful to be able to do this show, and I do it at KPCA LP in Petaluma. It's a live radio TV show. And then I upload all these shows that I do one a week to my YouTube channel. So you can watch the whole show very easily there. So if you go to Michelle Love at Dynamic Change and Wellness on YouTube, it'll bring up all the shows for you. And I am a certified wellness coach, self-defense instructor, fitness trainer, and I have a degree in psychology. I have a background working in mental health. I've always worked with people that needed healing my whole life. And so if you need more information on me, you can go to my website, dynamicchangeandwellness.com. And you can also contact me through the website. And I'm talking today about how we can be supportive to people that have been adopted. And so developing community. So I've already talked about, being supportive of anyone that you meet within your life. I think there's always people that need family feeling and connection. There's always kids that need help. There's always teens that need help. There's always like a single mom that needs some support. There's just, and first you got to take care of yourself so you're 100% so you can be there for other people. But, doing whatever you can, even if it seems very small to you, it doesn't matter. Any effort we have to provide any kind of community and support, avocation for people that need support, I think it's just so important. And being honest and respectful about, as a parent, again, when I was speaking to being a stepmom, being a legal guardian like I am, and the things that I have done in my life, I was always respectful and honest about it. I always told the kid, you have your mom, and that is fantastic. You have a wonderful mom, and so I'm just this extra person that is just going to be there for you, love you 100%. I'm your extra person. And that's kind of how I always viewed myself and presented myself. And so it wasn't about me. And I think anytime we can do that, so there's no strings attached. is so helpful, right? There's no guilt. There's no trips laid on the person that you're helping, right? So anyway, and also I would like to speak to releasing the old picture within society of how we view family. So I tend to look at family very different than a lot of people I've known, but I think having that kind of love and someone you can count on, that kind of support, that connection should be found in general in life. And so I think family is amazing, but there's also a lot of expectation that comes with the psychological ideas of the family unit. And I think that provides some really difficult ways to relate at times. So I think pondering, because this is a very interesting way to think about it. I think this is an outside the box kind of idea. I love outside the box. Is how do we look at how we relate to community and people we really care about? So rather than thinking it has to look a particular way or be defined in a very fixed way, because I think society has very fixed ideas of what family has to look like, it can be very different. It is about the village. It is about, finding someone that gets you, that understands you, that can be present with you. And sometimes we have to go outside the box. Sometimes it's not within our family structure. So really being open to looking at it a little different, I think can be very helpful. And so the trauma, I think one of the traumas that can result from being adopted, and I find this in general with, because I think most families have a certain amount of, not always intense trauma, but definitely dysfunction, right? So, which is fine. Maybe that's just normal, right? Maybe that's just normal human experience. But is what happens when we don't feel we feel abandoned, right? Is we're then reaching out into the world to try to fill that void. And that's a really painful dynamic, because we're trying to fill something through someone else, which can be dangerous, because then it's really easy to connect with negative experiences, unfortunately, people that are not going to be the most positive and loving people sometimes, right? But there's this void. And so I think there's a void that gets developed not only in life in general, when we have this type of issue, but especially when have been adopted, this can be something that can happen. So unless they did have one of those amazing experiences where the parents were amazing and everything felt like they got what they needed, right? I'm sure there are really positive experiences from being adopted, and I don't want to discredit those, but I do want to talk about if the void was created, right? And so how are we filling up that void? That's really important to look at. I'm always, because when we need something, when we want something, and we're not finding a way to fill it within ourselves, and trying to pull it from the world, pulling it from other people, often we get things that are very painful. And so the more we can fill our own void, we all have them, right? We all have things to heal. The more you fill it within yourself, the safer your life can end up being on so many levels. So again, I'm talking about the experience of being adopted and what I found out through researching it. And so I want to talk about creating filters. So when we are reaching out into the world to fill that void, right? Of that deep subconscious piece that is missing from being not growing up with the biological mother. This can also be related to feeling abandoned in general in life, right? So when we have that void and we're trying to fill it, I think we need to create a filter of what we find what we can accept, what is acceptable in life, to start nourishing what we need, okay, what we feel like we're lacking. So if we can consciously really start focusing our intention on, okay, I'm going to create a filter. Not anyone can just fill that void. Okay? Don't just leave it open. You don't want just anyone coming through, right? We really want to have some strong filters, boundaries of what is okay, right? So, we just want positive people, you know. And so when we're healing wounds, we don't always know what positive people look like, okay? But if you focus your intention on learning it, sometimes I tell the universe, please send me an example of this because I don't understand this yet. And I will just put that intention out. I want to learn about this thing that I never learned. Show me someone that is like that. And it's not so that I can maybe all of a sudden have it in my life. I just want to see it. I want to observe it. I want to learn it. And so we need to start putting out these intentions of what will be positive for us to help heal this. So maybe examples of healthy families or loving families, connected families, or a beautiful, loving connection between a mother and their child. So healing. We can receive healing from witnessing it. Witnessing things is very powerful, in my opinion. And so, and asking for safe people, because I think there's a huge also feeling of betrayal that can happen from being adopted, right? Because it feels like there's like these hidden things, or maybe they don't tell you. So there's this betrayal component that can be there. So just saying, I want people that are going to be safe, positive, loving, kind people. You have to really define it. If you don't define it, you're just going to get anybody, okay? And we want positive people in our lives that are going to be supportive and help lift us up towards our healing. And then putting the focus out that I want to develop a feeling of safety, and then so to develop the safety, I think creating verbal boundaries and saying what you need. I think this is really important, and I talk about this when I teach self-defense. I even talk about it in my own angle about being assertive. So someone that's adopted, I think it's really important to feel like you are creating a sense of control for yourself, because I think feeling adopted feels so out of control, like that control was taken from you. So really telling people what you need. I need you to clearly tell me when you're upset with me and why. And do your best to discuss it with me rather than pulling away. When you pull away, it feels traumatic for me. That sense of pulling away, that trauma that gets triggered in me. So please work on communicating with me as much as possible and setting that boundary with everyone, not just in relationship. Try to do it at work. Try to do it with every single person you come in contact with in any subtle way that you can think of. The more you can practice that muscle of asking for what you need, having them define, any things that need to be discussed and communicated, allows you to trust and feel like there is some sort of control and definition to these experiences rather than feeling at the whim of them. Where you feel like you have been in a situation that was completely out of your hands by being adopted. So communication, and just really giving words and ideas practice these things to say to people. I feel supported when you just listen to me. I feel supported when, if you're upset with me around something, if you please just say, can you do this differently? Sometimes people, they have such a hard time with conflict. You can say things like, can you just tell me how you would like me to behave differently? And give them that permission to help the communication be, everyone's allowed to say what they need. The boundaries are so clear, so communicated, and so open that there can be trust that is developed. So before we do a meditation, I want to do a guided meditation to help facilitate filters, intention, and expectation for what you may need to help you heal, create some healing around this. I want to finish up by saying there's a couple of things that I thought may be helpful. People that are healing from feelings of being adopted. Connecting with animals is a whole nother way to create community. I don't meet animals that are not nice people. I love animals. I have deep respect for them. They are nice, compassionate, loving beings. So whether it's horses, some sort of therapy, or volunteering at a shelter, but developing open, unconditional love and connection. You can do it in a lot of ways. Sitting with nature, you can also feel connection with nature. We need to find connection. So when we have been taken from our tribe, we don't know who our tribe is, finding it in every way possible, I think is so valuable. Joining groups that are supportive for other people that have been adopted, hobbies that also create community. Maybe you connect with, that will be really healthy, right? So it's not this void thing that we're trying to fill where dysfunction can come in. Look for really positive communities. So whether you join a hiking club or, a bowling group, right? Or a dance group or a music group or, volunteer to help, so connecting with other people in ways that create a sense of feeling connection, community that are safe, are going to be good people without agendas, because relationships complicated, right? Like our romantic relationships, all these layers, we can end up in some really dysfunctional situations when we're still working on healing our wounds. So creating connection, community in ways that we know will be really safe, I think are really important. So just thinking of activities that provide a connection and a group feeling that we know will be healthy and positive. And you could also take classes. Sometimes go take a cooking class or something that provides a social interaction that we know will be a safe experience. So now I would also like to take a quick break before our final meditation to read an announcement for the radio station for KPCA LP in Petaluma. So one of their shows is called the Vintage Audio Hour, Tuesdays from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., hosted by Rich Crowell. It's a complicated, speaking is challenging sometimes, a compilation focusing on singer-songwriters, including rock and the eclectic side of country music, featuring artists from Dave Alvin to Warren Devon. We will also play from the catalogs of lesser-known current artists. So that sounds fantastic. I love music. And so I want to do a guided meditation. You can do this with me now. So if you inhale and take 3 deep breaths, and also a glass of water before you do deep breathing is always very helpful. So we're going to take some deep breaths. Hold that breath, hold it in, and when you feel ready, exhale fully, push all the air out, squeeze it out. And inhale. And exhale. One more breath, inhale. And exhale. Now you can imagine your energy like a light dropping out of your feet and your tailbone. You can do one area at a time. Do the feet first, then the tailbone. As you exhale, that energy goes down into the earth, because we have energy in our bodies, and you connect to the earth. That's also a connection, a community, connecting, feeling solid. We live on the earth. The earth is alive, connecting with that. So feeling that connection, and then after you feel that connection, let's focus on, with our intention, you can close your eyes and imagine connecting with those people that you have created, your standards, through your filter. So imagine this beautiful color, a healing color, maybe this big green color, and you see, and you don't give it too much, don't define it too much, because then you don't want to block new things coming in that maybe you didn't think of, right? But just imagine some people there. Maybe you have no idea what they look like, but you feel this love, this kindness, this compassion, this good intentions of support and love from them, and that you can relax and feel safe. So give them, put your intention, your focus on, okay, they have to be positive and kind, generous, they just want to give, and they're open to listening to my feelings, their hearts are open, their minds are open, and just feel this safe connection. And imagine feeling that in your body. So when we have not been able to imprint on these feelings, we have to create it. So the more you focus, daydream about it, think about it through the day, you're programming yourself with these new feelings. You have to imagine it in your body, in your tissue, to go back to that cellular, visceral experience that you experienced as a baby. And we're going to give you some new content. So imagine these people being there. I would work with animals if it were me, because we have all these people within our world, right? We have animals, we have nature, and we have people. So if you go to all three of those, imagine feeling, as you continue to breathe deeply, as you continue to relax, you've allowed your energy to go out your feet and your tailbone, you continue to do deep breathing. And I want you to visualize a connection. Maybe you like the beach. Imagine you're sitting at the beach, or you're sitting, on the mountain trail, you like to hike. But put yourself somewhere in nature, under your favorite tree. And you're sitting there, and you feel this connection and this peace with nature. And then you notice the animals. Imagine feeling comfort and connection and some healing, some empathy with nature. So then go to the animals. Maybe you just want to look at the wildlife. And wow, I saw a hawk that day. I saw the squirrel, and they were adorable, and they made my heart feel good. Or my dog was with me, and oh, my dog they see me. Or that my cat was with me, and they get it, and they love me, and I feel their presence. So, connect with the animals. And then see the people. Just put them through a filter. You have very, very, very high requirements of who's allowed to be part of your life. People that are just good people, and really define good people. Kindness, compassion, empathy, openness of their heart and mind. Funny, right? People that are real, honest, right? Genuine, creative. What do we need? What helps us feel connection, positive connection? And keep giving it a filter, and keep imagining this. Imagine this throughout the day as you do deep breathing. Put this beautiful color out, and you see this crowd. You see the nature, the animals, this huge group of people that you are assembling. And imagine your family. And imagine finding your birth family, if that is what what you want, imagine being able to find them easily. Imagine that information coming to you easily, even if it doesn't work out the way you want. If you need that information for your healing, for your heart, just imagine finding that information being accessible, being easy, and pull it to you. And see that whether you have to like deal with the cord or deal with complicated, issues of the file being locked, the case being locked or whatever, see it being opened. All the doors are open, everything flows. And when you go to sleep at night, keep visualizing how you're going to feel that the channels are open and their healing is coming to you. So again, next week, I'm going to do more of a guided meditation, a longer guided meditation for inner regulation. And because I think it's really needed. I think there's a lot of stress these days in the world. So I hope I have respectfully covered this topic of being adopted and provided some ideas of how we can support them. And I thank you for listening. My name is Michelle Love, and this show is Dynamic Change. I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.